Mr. Forrester is a co-founder of TravAbility, has over 35 years experience in both the private and public sectors in senior management role. Bill is acknowledged through leader in the growing economics of accessible tourism, universal design, and social inclusion, especially the impact of the retiring baby boomer will have on the tourist sector. He has given keynote addresses international of the economics of inclusive tourists and is a member of the program committee of Destination for All. TravAbility and PhotoAbility have as their mission to desire to change the way the world views people with disabilities. Mr. Forrester?
Thank you. So far we've heard quite a lot on the physical infrastructure. I want to turn it around a little bit in the next 12 minutes and talk about universal design in relation to what I call soft infrastructure. What is soft infrastructure? Soft infrastructure is that overlay that turns the physical into a value proposition for a customer. It's built around product development, customer service, the underlying booking systems, the training, something that's been talked about a lot in this conference so far, the detailed information, the marketing and the imagery. This video is about 4 years old now, but for those from the West Coast, you'll recognise this as the Athabasca Glacier on the Icefields Parkway. Perhaps one of the most accessible destinations in the world. For those that might be interested, those ice explorers are worth about $6.5 million a piece, and you might think there's only one of them that has the accessible lift in it. 30% of the fleet so far have, and Brewster's now have a policy to introduce the lift into every ice explorer.
This is very cool. I was actually a little bit nervous to come up here. A little bit less of a risk taker as I age, and no, I'm very glad I did, and I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity to come up and to be able to do it in an accessible vehicle is even more exciting.
With every accessible traveller, there's an average of 2 companions, able-bodied companions that travel with them. It's an enormous market. Enormous, yet enormously underserviced. So sure, we're filling a niche, and not only do we believe it's commercially fantastic, but from a feel-good and communal perspective, it's also magnificent.
I think they feel that it's very valuable, and they feel valued as people because they don't have to sit on the sidelines and just watch while everybody else can go and experience this. They get to come in and jump on and have some fun themselves, and I think that makes them feel part of the community, part of the group, and I think it's very inclusive, and I think it's very beneficial for all of us. We do not keep separate statistics on mobility impaired that I am aware of, but to us that really is not an important statistic. What really is important that everyone is afforded the opportunity to experience these facilities, and we're just happy that we're leaders in this field, and we love seeing mobility impaired people up on the glacier along with everybody else.
There are 3 key takeaways from that video. The first was Joanne Kelly said it was very cool, but she was nervous to go up there. This comes back to the point that's recurring through the conference so far. Lack of information makes it difficult for people to make an informed decision on whether something's available to them or not. This is a key part of what I call the soft infrastructure, making sure that people are invited to come. We all know, we've seen enough statistics, and you'll see more from me in a minute, on the size of this market and why it is significant from a market-driven point of view. And finally, Michael Hannon, the former CEO of Brewster's now, they don't keep statistics, and nor should people. There's been a recurring theme through this conference: show me the empirical evidence, show me how much it's going to add to my bottom line, show me how many people are coming. I'd actually contend that's the wrong way to look at it. What you're trying to do is build an experience for all. You're not trying to build an add-on. It's got to be incorporated right from the get-go. I think everybody's seen that graph, the disability graph. We've talked about the baby boomers over lunch. At age 65, 40% of the population have a disability. By age 75, that becomes 60%. By 2020, if you extrapolate that out with the spending power of the baby boomers, that's 25% of the tourism market will be made up by people with disability. Now, that is a big number in anybody's language, and anybody who tries to say accessible tourism is a niche doesn't understand the market. And that's why. There's your ageing graph. It is the fastest growing demographic of all time. And the very interesting line on the top, of every person who's reached the age of 65 since recorded history, 2/3 of them are still alive. They're getting older. The important thing about all of this is people aren't going to use a service they don't know exists. It's not the field of dreams where you build it and they will come. You can build as much as you like. You can have the best infrastructure in the world. But if no one knows it's there, it is, to all intents and purposes, invisible. We all know the 7 principles of universal design, but 4 of them are often overlooked when it comes to soft infrastructure. When it comes to your booking systems and everything else, it's got to be equitable in use, it's got to be simple and intuitive, the information has got to be perceivable by everybody, and there's got to be a low physical effort. That means you don't look at footnotes to try and find your ADA compliance information where you're hiding your accessibility information. Whoops. So, look at the current issues. Why do we see booking systems continually that require you to ring to phone a separate number or a separate procedure? Why do we have special seating areas that, guess what, cater for a carer only? What about the rest of the group, your family and friends that are travelling with you? You're stuck in isolation with one person only. Why is accessibility information often hidden in the frequently asked questions? What's that message sending? Why is there a different language style? One of the examples I'm going to show you in a minute, we started with a situation where there was beautiful prose inviting people to come. You got to the accessibility page and it read like a rule book. This is fundamental cultural change that's got to occur within the soft infrastructure. My favourite example is, why is the accessible suite always the lowest quality and always overlooks the dump master? We make continually assumptions that people with disability are only going to have the lowest level of room. And as it was well said over lunch, why do people not know how to talk to people with disability? They're people, they're customers. I'm going to quickly go through 2 examples of how things are different. The first is the Parks Victoria Parks Accessibility Evaluation Manual, and John Kenwright's in the room, and I would really advise everybody tomorrow who's interested in this to go to parallel session 32. This manual wasn't built as an evaluation manual. It actually was, but it was built as an evaluation manual to then provide accessible information. So it was in 2 parts, an evaluation guide and then how to write up and present the information, even how to take and where to take the photographs. The second one is Melbourne and Olympic Parks. This started on the basis of Melbourne Olympic Parks regards itself as a world-class destination. For those who don't know Melbourne Olympic Parks, it's where the Australian Open is played, which is one of the 4 Grand Slam events in Australia. It is a multi-venue for all sorts of things. The premise of this is we want to create a plan that will allow us to build a customer service ethos that gives everybody the same experience, seamless experience, regardless of age or disability. So here you've got a guiding document to change, cultural stuff. Now we're going to have a little bit of fun.
Welcome to Whistler, British Columbia. It has been 25 years since Rick Hansen got in his wheelchair and traveled 40,000 kilometers around the globe on his Man in Motion World Tour. Hansen has confronted and conquered it all, from the Great Wall of China to inaccessible washrooms in 34 countries. Well, the one thing that the Man in Motion has never done is plunge 160 feet off a bridge into a gorge with a raging river at the bottom. Today, that changes because today, Rick Hansen and I go bungee jumping.
Hi there.
Are you Chris?
I'm Chris.
Hi, Chris. This is Rick Hansen.
Hey, Rick.
How you doing?
Nice to see you.
So, Chris, walk us through bungee jumping here in Whistler.
Well, bungee jumping here in Whistler, we actually have a test dummy here, right here. That's
Hello.
going to...
That's a terrible thing to say. How are you? What's your name?
Lindy.
Lindy. Hi, Lindy. This is Rick.
Hi, Lindy.
Hi, nice
How are you?
That looks very secure.
That's the slip knot?
Yeah. Don't be nervous until the duct tape shows up.
Yeah.
You got the orange rope. That's good.
Safety rope.
Yeah. Easy to find at the bottom of the river. When you did the Man in Motion tour, the tour itself, you raised like, how much?
26 million.
$26 million. But the point of the tour wasn't to raise money
No,
for spinal
it
cord
was to
research.
create awareness of the potential of people with disabilities.
People with disabilities, what they can do.
What was possible if barriers were removed.
Right. And now people know that people with disabilities can do all sorts of things. But when I told people I was going bungee jumping with you, a lot of smart people said, well, he can't do that. He's in a wheelchair.
Yeah, that's still a big frontier. You know, there's a lot of people that
Bungee.
are doing
The
these-
last frontier.
Perfect.
You know those type of athletes who try to get into the other athlete's head?
Did you have the upper hand now?
Oh, yeah,
See,
totally.
before
I was a coward. Now I'm
yeah.
a braggart. So you're only really strapped in like this so you can't change your mind. The stuff we get into.
You are a bad man.
It's the Man in Motion. Except it's down this time.
1,
2,
3.
Rick, brother! Rick, how are you?
Hey, I can't feel my legs. Oh no!
That was cool, man! Woo! Unbelievable. It's not every day you see a guy in a wheelchair dangling over a gorge. Rick Hansen.
Now, that is a lot of fun, but the serious point clearly is 25 years ago, infrastructure was a key limitation. 25 years hence, we are a long way further advanced in infrastructure, but we're also a long way further advanced in what people with disabilities believe they can do and what their aspirations are. What hasn't changed necessarily is that culture to enable it to happen. We've now got a cultural barrier, not necessarily a physical one. Bungee's not the new frontier, clearly. The new frontier is changing a mindset, changing the industry to believe in producing a product. After all, tourism is all about selling dreams, and those dreams should be the same for everyone with a seamless experience. I'll skip that one. I used this morning, we're not talking about design for the disabled, we're talking about universal design, starting from the soft infrastructure, right through to the physical, to the service delivery, and the rest of it. So I would say to everybody here, probably going out on a limb, throw away your disability action plans, start thinking in terms of inclusion plans, and start building universal design in from the word go. Thank you.
My name is Brian Sims, company is Access Holidays Canada. And I noticed in one of the video that you show with the ice field, I had a situation with a client this summer. I called, I had everything verified as to whether or not it was accessible. I told him that the person was using a power chair. Then I discovered there's restriction as to how much load can be lifted. So one power chair can access that the Ice Explorer. So that became an issue, and no one told me that before. So it's interesting that you show that, because it says we're able to accommodate people in a folding chair, manual chair, because it doesn't have the weight restriction of the battery and so forth. But the power chair, they couldn't. So when you see videos like this, sure, it lets you get the feeling that there's accessibility there, but there's always underlying little issues that comes up with accessibility. So it's not just saying, yes, it's accessible. One has to drill down to find out exactly the degree of accessibility and if there are any issues outstanding there. And also the issue of liability insurance and waivers. For one to really experience fully a normal, what normal individuals would say in an ICE Explorer, one has to consider there may be underlying medical issues for a person, for some individual that uses a wheelchair. So that also becomes a barrier in and of itself as to whether or not one can get on the ICE Explorer or just get on the ice fields or want to enjoy themselves like everyone else. If you have a response to that, I appreciate that.
I think that touches on something that was said this morning and is probably one of the key ongoing issues, and even, I guess, is at the heart of this presentation. Information is still lacking. I've said the Icefield Parkway is probably one of the most accessible destinations in the world, generally, but the information doesn't match it. In fact, it is only in the last 2 years that Brewster's even bothered to say that anything was accessible. So unless you knew, you didn't go. And the Vancouver Olympics forced that a little bit. But yeah, I accept your point. There is limitations on a lot of things that we've got to work through. The caution I will throw out, though, is, and it's something that I've been saying this whole conference so far, if something's not 100% accessible, that doesn't mean you don't say what is or what part of it is accessible. Yes, it may not take power chairs, but if it takes manual chairs and there is a weight restriction, tell people, let them make a decision whether they can go or not. Don't just say it's not accessible because it won't take 100% of everybody, because that cuts a market out that can enjoy the experience. But it comes back again to that core soft infrastructure. You've got to indoctrinate it, you've got to understand what your customers are likely to be and cater for it. And if it's not suitable for somebody, tell them it's not suitable for somebody. After all, not every tourism experience is suitable for everybody anyway, able-bodied or disabled.
Thank you.